good measure.
Hello and welcome to Let's Be Frank.
Good morning.
Good morning. Today we are talking about the equation of emotion, EOE.
EOE, well, amongst other things, yeah, I think.
Well, I'm sure that lends itself to lots of other things.
Yes.
I actually felt like when I was reading some articles on this that we've spoken about this before, just not in that specific equation of emotion term, and we haven't really looked at the equation.
Yeah.
But we've spoken about expectations versus reality and things like that.
Yeah, you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
I've spoken about this before, and we'll most probably speak about it again in
Yeah.
the future. It's such an important facet, I think, of our lives. And I became very aware of this again this past week. I was listening to a book.
Yeah.
It's a book about happiness.
What's it called again?
It's one of those happiness
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
Yeah. So Sean Webb.
Yeah, Sean Webb. It's a really good book.
Hacking happiness or something
Hacking
like that.
Happiness
Yeah,
or
that
something
sounds
like
familiar.
that. Yeah, there's hacking in there. Whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting book. And what I appreciated about it is all the science that sits behind it. But also just becoming aware of there is an equation of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we all understand the massive effect that our emotions have on us.
Yeah.
But then I think a couple of interesting things for me was, understanding the emotions a little bit better.
Yeah.
And that led me to something that he mentions in the book is to just check out the Atlas of Emotions a little bit, which is a really cool website. If you just Google Atlas of Emotions.
You've shared something similar with me before. That, you're not feeling happy or sad or whatever, it's something else. There's like more.
Oh, yeah. That was from Entrepreneurs Organization, kind of map of emotions, because a lot of what you do when you state a fact, if you kind of check your feelings, and then I don't think we're very good at articulating how we actually feel. You may default to, well, it made me angry, it made me sad, it made me happy. Yeah. It's not quite that, but exploring kind of all those other little nuances around it. But this is very different, the Atlas of Emotions. I mean, this is a Dr. or Professor Eckhart, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Very interesting individual. Has been doing research and work in this field for many, many years. And this whole Atlas of Emotions thing is done in collaboration with, under the guidance of, sponsored by, I'm not sure which one of those, but the Dalai Lama is also in there. It is a really interesting website to go and look at and understanding the Atlas of our emotions.
Okay.
So what is the equation of emotion?
You've just put me
So
on
the mathematical, no, that's why I have my notes here so I don't screw it up. So it says that EP minus RP equals ER.
Yeah. So the way that I can't remember exactly what everything there stands for, but the way that I kind of summarize it for myself is that if your expectations are greater than reality as you see it, so it's perceived reality, then it's going to result in disappointment. So the last one is emotional outcome, I suppose. The first one is expectation, or
so the EP stands for your expected preference.
Expected preference.
Minus the reality as perceived.
Yeah.
Equals your emotional reaction.
Okay.
So the way that you framed it now is you immediately went to a negative one. It can obviously be a positive one as well. And I think some of the other So incidentally, just this morning on a podcast I was listening to, another equation was mentioned. James Altucher spoke about there's a happiness equation, and that is H equals R over E, which is obviously happiness equals reality divided by expectation.
Yeah.
And that's the part that we spoke about in the past quite a bit, about, expectations. How often our expectations set us up for disappointment or sadness or whatever it is. And remember, there's another equation, a third equation, that I always try to be mindful of, and that is that expectation equals premeditated resentment.
So I mean, so does it boil down to keeping your expectations low? Because that's not how we want to live.
No, yeah.
Because
so I think it's a natural kind of conclusion to come to. Well, screw that. I'm just not going to expect
anything.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think it's just making sure that you align your expectations. There are certain things where I feel that it's pretty useless to even have an expectation. The other thing that we talk about quite a lot is the line of insanity. Having an expectation about things that you have absolutely no control over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty futile, useless to do that.
Yeah.
But in terms of I don't know, in our personal lives, me to have certain expectations of myself, in a work environment, to have expectations of others.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that you kind of align those expectations, or if you have expectations, that you articulate those expectations.
Yeah.
So in other words, if I just say to you, I expect your best, I don't think that's good enough.
Yeah.
Because my perception of what your best is.
Yeah. Well, there's also a certain subjectivity in the reality part of it, because it's not just reality as in what is the truth of the situation, it's reality as you see it. It's your perceived reality, which could be different. Reality for me could be very different to what reality is for you.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not a simple equation. There's a lot of, I don't know, it's complicated.
Yeah, so I'm obviously not qualified to articulate it as well as Sean Webb does in the book. I would encourage, just go check on YouTube. There are quite a few videos available and so on.
I think he does a TED talk on it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I kind of in the last week found myself in a couple of situations where I had to ask, what are the expectations? Please articulate the expectations so that I can make sure that I can either agree with those expectations or disagree with them, and adjust those expectations to something that we can agree on.
Yeah.
It also made me really focus in terms of just me personally, well, when I speak to somebody, am I clear about what the expectations are? And also in any interaction that you have, well, do you have expectations that are maybe, I don't know, unrealistic or unnecessary sometimes? So if I go play golf on Saturday morning, if I have an expectation that I'm going to shoot 5 under par, I mean, that's completely unrealistic. I don't have that expectation. But yet that's one thing where I find that I'm usually disappointed when I walk off the golf course. And I'm trying to think about that as well. Well, maybe I should readjust or maybe adjust my expectations to something that's more realistic, and that can have a more positive effect, because I actually do that for enjoyment and to relax and not get all worked up about it. And I think that there are many other examples.
Well, my paint by numbers example is maybe if I've started one of those big but tiny paint by numbers projects, and I was disappointed that I didn't get very far when I started. But maybe my expectations were far too high. I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be and how tiny the things were and how rubbish the paintbrushes that they give you and all that nonsense. So it's adjusting my expectations. So maybe if I go home tonight and I say I'm going to finish half of number 2's color or something, then I won't be as disappointed.
Yeah, and I think that you had that. You maybe had that expectation because you didn't have anything to measure it against.
Yeah.
You just looked at it and you figured, hey, this is going to be easy.
It's not.
So in many other things that we do, especially a new skill or a new hobby or something new that you learn, you have an expectation. Well, maybe I'll be able to speak fluent Mandarin in 2 months. Until you kind of go for the first or the second lesson
and realize how hard it is to say hello.
Correct, and then you can very quickly adjust that expectation.
Yeah. So you need kind of a benchmark.
That's so important, you know, is to continue to adjust that expectation to something that is realistic, and not just go, well, this is tough, screw that. Yeah,
and give up because of the initial disappointment.
Yeah, and how often have you come across that where people, yourself or somebody that you know, said, oh, I'm going to do this, and then give up
after
very quickly because that expectation and reality doesn't match.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of a business sense, we try to learn from that and try to bring that gap between expectation and reality closer and closer and closer, because of the predictability that it will give us.
Yeah.
If we can adjust our expectation closer to the reality over time, then I think we will most probably end up we'll still consistently challenge ourselves.
Yeah. And you will still hit things that are unforeseen. That
those things will happen. Yeah. But being aware of this in terms of where your expectations are, and adjusting your reality accordingly, is extremely important. And in the context of the book, and where it's about happiness, there's for me personally quite a few lessons to take out of that.
Yeah.
How do my expectations influence my levels of happiness?
Yeah.
I'm really going to focus on that and get more, apply more thought into that, where I can make sure that my expectations are known.
Yeah.
If it's in a work environment, and in terms of your personal relationships as well, I think it's extremely important to make sure that those expectations are at least known.
Yeah.
And then there are so many cases where, well, you know what, my expectation is just my expectation. If I have to travel from point A to B now, I may have an expectation that it's going to take me 10 minutes or 15 minutes to get there. But that is, I don't know, maybe based on past experiences and so on. But that's a completely unrealistic expectation to have.
Mm-hmm.
And try and make sure that I adjust my expectations as close as I possibly can to a reality. But even more important than that, I think, is understanding that what your expectations are.
Yeah.
And how far that may be removed from reality.
Yeah.
so that when you get yourself in a situation where you have this massive gap, that you don't allow that to affect you emotionally.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
It's not about not having any expectations, but being aware of what your expectations are, what that reality is, and when you find yourself somewhere in that gap, is having better control over your emotions or your reactions.
Yeah. But also not just that, but also your part in it. So I feel like it's quite easy to say that the problem is with the reality, the problem is not with my expectations or something like that. So it's really understanding that that you have some control over this equation. It's not all someone else's problem. The one thing I quite like that I was thinking about is that happiness equals, so it's turning the equation around, so the making the happiness the equals the reality divided by the expectation, because I feel like when you ask someone what is happiness, kind of the instant response is success. And that's not what it is. It's this reality divided by your expectation. And kind of the opposite of that is disappointment or sadness or depression equals failure, which is also not true. So it's the same thing. Disappointment equals reality over expectation. Just depends what those numbers are, or expectation over reality.
True.
Yeah.
You're so right in terms of happiness doesn't always
equal success.
Yeah. You can be very happy while failing.
Yeah.
And we should get more comfortable and take more joy out of failing, because that is the only way that we learn and improve and so on.
Yeah.
But just having a better awareness of our emotions. We often think that this is just how I am.
Yeah.
I get upset when certain things happen and so on.
Yeah.
Well, you are actually in control of your emotions.
That's what I was about to say, that you also think that it's happening to me.
No.
And that you're not a part in it or contributing to the case.
Yeah, obviously obviously in the book, I mean, there's a lot of detail about the explaining the different parts of the brain and exercises that you can do to kind of help you separate yourself from the emotions and how we react and so on. I find it fascinating. I think it's interesting to learn about how the brain works and where some of these things come from. But the overall goal in terms of the book is to create a higher level of happiness. I think is admirable. I think we all like to live in happiness, and like you said, it doesn't necessarily equate to, well, just give me infinite cash or food or a big house, or those things are not going to give you that happiness. It's about understanding or getting to that point where you know that it is about reality versus expectations in so many of the facets of our lives.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm definitely going to do a little bit more research into it and see if I can find those Sean Webb talks.
It's fascinating. Yeah. It's interesting personal stories behind it. I really encourage you to read up a little bit about it.
Cool. Thank you.
And check out the Atlas of Emotions.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks.